Y'all, I finally recovered from my 24-hour live and I am back. We're going to be going live a lot more. And if you notice, there's something new here. I have a wonderful guest with me. Hey, Jake.
Hello.
How are you?
Doing well. I'm excited to talk about Gossip Girl.
Yes, so Jake is a television critic over on my website, ericavane.com. He is covering Gossip Girl in depth and helping me bring all the tea to y'all about this series. Because this reboot has a lot of tea, child, a lot of tea. What are your initial thoughts about Gossip Girl as a whole? Tonight we get episode 5, but what are your initial thoughts?
So I actually came to Gossip Girl having not seen the original series. I was yeah, I was coming in with new eyes, and so I was genuinely quite excited to see the reboot to see if I needed to have seen it, and I don't think I needed to. The first episode, I really was not blown away by. In fact, I actively didn't enjoy it. It made me very angry. And in some ways, I feel like I'm getting Stockholm syndrome from the show. Like the more I watch it, I do feel like I'm liking it more, but I don't think the show deserves that.
That is so real. So I am a fan of the original series. I loved it. And it was something that I came across and didn't anticipate loving, but I literally fell in love with Blair. I fell in love with Sabrina. I fell in love with Chuck. Like he was it for me, all in his with his problematic ways and toxic behavior and all. So when they announced that they were doing the reboot, I was really excited about it. And then when they announced that April Blair, who is also the co-creator or the creator of All American, she actually left All American to go there and to be able to bring this reboot to life. I was like, okay, this is a slam dunk. Like we're set up to win, but you're right. The first episode really kind of fell flat for me. I was really lost in all of the frivolous um issues to be honest. Like I know that they live a life that I don't live and I don't necessarily fully understand initially, like right out the gate, but it was given very trivial from the very beginning, and that was the first thing for me that I felt like was like super off-putting.
No, I agree completely. There are points in this where I'm not sure if we're supposed to like the characters or if we're supposed to be saying to ourselves like, wow, they're so extreme, this is absurd. I don't think the show has like drawn that line in the sand, and if it's going to be like satire critiquing this upper class civilization, it has to draw the line in the sand of, are we supposed to like them, are we supposed to be ashamed of these people? And I don't think it's done that. I don't think that's ever clearer than in the most recent episode.
Yeah, so let's really quickly go back through and catch everyone up to where we are in the series right now. So, episode 5 is premiering tonight or has already premiered at midnight on HBO Max. So, we're definitely going to talk about that. But let's talk about episode 2, because episode 1 came and it kind of fell flat, but it gave us the introduction, right? It gave us Zoya. We get to see why she's here, how she actually got here, and what's the driving conflict of the show. We get to see, her with her sister Julian, and they come from these two different worlds. They have everything that, honestly, like the setup is great. The setup and the idea behind, these characters and what they're set up to go through is freaking awesome. So now I'm just like, yeah, how is it falling flat? What did you think about episode 2?
If I remember correctly, episode 2 was the first time that I started to like have a character I could root for, and it somehow ended up being Audrey, because
Yes.
she was the first character to make me audibly chuckle, and I commend that actress because she has great comedic timing, and so that subplot started being interesting. The Aki, Audrey Max subplot started to be interesting for me, but it still wasn't like bringing me everything I needed. The Zoya Julian subplot in that episode, oh, I don't remember what specifically it was. It
Because
was,
they spent so much time going back and forth about nothing. Like the
yeah,
amount of times I've heard Monet and Luna say, you got to claim what's yours, the top. And it's like this mythical top of what? She has all these following, she has all this money. Like, she has not gone anywhere, but this air or this illusion of power and influence that they must hold tight with this Titan's grip at all times is just like.
Yeah. No, they keep talking about power in the social media world, and I just feel like the writers, I'm not getting a sense that they know this generation that they're writing for.
Ooh.
I'm a Gen Z, and I'm not proud of it, but I am. Like I know a good bit about like the social media aspects of how important it is in our generation, and I just don't feel like they understand that much. Because I don't think the cast is the problem. I've really enjoyed the performances from. I think the actress who plays Julian is really excellent.
Yes, yes. Okay, so I will say that too. I do think that everyone is playing their role beautifully. I think for me, and maybe this is also a part of it, like maybe it's everyone is actually doing their jobs. Like I struggle the most with Monet and Luna, and I have from the very beginning, and it has continued to track up until this episode that we are
Yeah.
in right now. Um, but if that's the case, then maybe you're right about the writing and not necessarily being truly authentic to the Gen Z voice, because I'm looking at it and I'm like, and y'all wonder why we look at you like I'm a millennial, and you wonder why we look at you like, what are you doing? Like, is this all you really care about? Like, I can't.
Yeah. I mean, for a lot of people, yes. But I think that there is some element to. I think Julian has already achieved power, and I don't know why they are focusing in on you need to achieve more power because she's already achieved it. There were moments where she was losing followers for things that, in full truth, would have gained her followers. And those were the kinds of things that detail that just took me out of the series completely.
I get that. So moving forward into episode 3, that was the first episode that I was like, okay, I can do this. And that was the episode where we saw Max's subplot really start to go in a very interesting trajectory by introducing his parents and what's happening with his parents. I thought that that was beautiful. And then we also had the layer. So then maybe episode 2 was Audrey's mom's story, right?
Yeah.
Because I did that also. So when they start to introduce moments of true substance and just I'm calling it in my breakdowns like meatiness, I'm like, yes, I can do this. Okay, let's get into it. Like Audrey's messy mom, I freaking love her, I think, and it's just progressed, like especially once we get to this episode. She is struggling. She is depressed, but rightfully so. She's losing her business. She then lost her husband. She about to lose this one of many houses, and life is changing as she knows it. And then to watch Audrey like not really be able to empathize with that, not be able to process it, and it makes sense because she's a kid, but it's like you're also a kid who drinks gin martinis and goes out to these social clubs and does all of this stuff. So it's like, girl, come on, help your mama out a little bit, but yeah, your mama is drunk at this party. I thought that that was just like, oh yes, okay, give me more.
Oh yeah, I'm so here for the Audrey, anything that has to do with Audrey, Max, and Aki. I've been really interested in, and just the conversations that have developed about like sexuality and Aki's journey with that. I've been impressed with the inclusivity of this show. That is a major strength to it. Those were it's something that we don't see on TV a lot, and I was genuinely impressed that they were having these conversations. As for Audrey's mom, I love Laura Benanti. She's a Broadway gem, and I'm always happy to see her in whatever she is in.
Yes. Speaking about the diversity, the inclusion, and the diversity in thought in reference to conversations that they have. And I do love that as well. They're still maintaining the messiness by way of this trio. However, I love that they are having the conversation of exploring sexuality and what does that mean, and then not being so cut and dry. Like I think a lot of times we get stories of like we get queer coming of age stories where it's just like, okay, you get to this moment and you come out, or you
Yeah,
struggle with coming out, and that's just it. And it's like, actually, no, there are people who haven't figured it out, who aren't sure how they want to identify, who are still trying to navigate those waters. And for me, seeing it for the first time, I'm like, oh, okay, this is a lot like it's a lot like for me being a straight black woman of like settling into a type, right? Or like no, like having the whole vibe in that way. Can you speak to what you think the impact will be for them displaying Aki's story in the way that they are right now in the series?
yeah, absolutely. Oh, do you mean like audience reception wise, or do you
Mm-hmm.
mean?
And also like audience reception, but then also what you think they are also trying to say with it.
That's kind of the first like line in the sand that I've been able to like come from this show. And it's I'm to repeat some of the things that you've already said. You know, it isn't a cut dry coming out. He when he's asked by Audrey what his if he likes men, he says I don't know. And that's so important that we give people the time and the patience, and you know, representation is so important, and I think they're doing a great job with it in the sexuality department and also the gender department. His Max's father being they haven't specifically said his pronouns yet, their pronouns yet. So I'm not sure if they're gender non-conforming or if they're gender fluid or if they're just if they're trans. But I love that they are going in this direction, and I think that it in that way the show feels relevant. It doesn't feel dated in some of the other LGBTQ focused things that I've seen. I know Happy Christmas came out a few years ago, and I thought this feels a little dated in
Mm.
fresh, and this felt very fresh. And I'm impressed in that department.
Yeah. And it's definitely opened up conversations. I remember episode 2, there was a person who posted a comment in the comment section and said that Aki's dad, I mean, sorry, Max, one of Max's dads is not trans. And I was like, oh, dang, okay. Um, I need to be able to pull up that comment so I can see what he said. I think he said he was cis non-conforming, or they are cis non-conforming. And that to me, I was like, oh, okay, let me go and like look this up and research it. And I've been able to, as a straight black woman, now by way of the series, be introduced to different terms, different ways of identity, or ways that people are identified, and actually being able to educate myself. Now that, so the person who posted that comment, I actually did the research and it's not confirmed yet. You're right. They have not released pronouns. They have not actually said what the journey is for them on the series. And I'm waiting for, I feel like that is also becoming an intentional thing. So I'm going to reserve, my thoughts in reference to referring to them as trans or cis non-conforming or whatever the identity will be, because that is something that, in reference to like just indirect conversations, that's also something that the person needs to be able to communicate to you. And that is something that we are struggling with all over the freaking country right now, I think, in reference to really being able to see people for who they are, and accept them for who they tell you they are, and be able to move forward. So I love that they are including this in reference to subplots by way of Max's character. And it really honestly ties into a lot that we're starting to see Max go through in reference to, I think, his identity and how he's showing up in the world. Like, I think that they're starting to plant seeds for things that they can string together in this really cool story spiderweb.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree. Max is one of those characters that started in one way, and I think he's been the character who has shifted the most quickly and most I was ready to hate this guy. I was so ready. He's an attractive guy, but he's got a very annoying face, and I'm so to just write him off. And to the actor's credit, he is giving a sense of depth and nuance to this kid who is struggling with identity and with parents' divorce. I really am impressed with that area. And I also just want to say, because I didn't say this before, it's so refreshing to not see these struggles, especially with Gideon, the father, for that to not be played off as the joke. There's never been an ending where they've been like, haha, my dad, or it's just been played seriously. And that is so refreshing to see, just a genuine conversation. That is, I want more things like that.
Yeah, and honestly, I knew it set the tone for me when we saw in that episode that Max was the one pushing for Gideon to be himself, to show up as himself, as flamboyant, as vibrant, as outspoken as he is. I was like, oh, okay. He's like, oh, and I'm gonna get my suit too. I was like, okay, so this is what we're doing. And you're right, it was grounded in this is life, this is our life, and we're going to show up as our best selves in every situation, regardless of, even if it's family that's trying to have me dim my light. And I've been working on some things in the back end, and one of the things that's prevailing in my mind a lot right now is that great stories are universal. And that to me was a moment of like, yes, don't dim your light. In this moment, it's you wanting to wear your, three-piece suit with the feathers and whatever is going on. But for me, it's showing up as a 6-foot Black woman and being able to stand strong and confident in where I am and what I know and who I am and all that kind of stuff. And I felt it.
Yeah. I think, you're right. Stories are universal. They're about people, and they transcend anything. If the story is told well enough, it can relate to anyone. And they're definitely doing it with the Gideon Max subplot. Yeah.
For sure. Now let's actually go. So we're talking about the parents right now. We've touched on Max's parents. We've touched on Audrey's parents. Let's move over to Julian's dad. Because I was all set to hate him. How are you feeling about Julian's dad as of now, as we go into what would come out of episode 5 and into episode 6? Hey, Lombardi Lee, thank you for checking in with us. Go ahead.
When I was watching the show, I was like, wait, is that the guy from Marvelous Miss Maisel? And it was.
Oh, and so that was it.
He's very good in that show.
Okay.
So immediately when I saw him, I was like, oh, I have to like you because you're Marvelous Maisel, the character I can't think of. But so I started to enjoy him, and then we've got the Lola subplot with Lola being a lover of his that he's been keeping from Julian to protect her. And we've gotten this very interesting dynamic between him and Nick Lott, Zoya's father. And for me, Nick Lott has been one of my favorite parts of the show. He's charismatic, that every time he is on screen, he just draws me right to him.
Yep.
Seeing those two interact, both very charismatic people interacting and fighting and doing what is best for their daughters, I have been enjoying that aspect. The parents are really the part of the show that keeps me in. They explain the characters in such a good way by just showing their parents.
Yes, I would agree. The parents are what's grounding the story for me too. Because Lord, these children left to their own devices is just like, okay, I think we need to get some therapists on the line and some nannies because y'all might be teenagers, but y'all need supervision.
And the teachers.
Oh my gosh, we're gonna get to the teachers because they are probably the number one reason why I was going to stop watching Gossip Girl. So we're
Oh
gonna
yeah.
get there. But Julian's dad, I was just like, okay, great, another absentee father who has it all and just leaves his kid to raise herself. Um, to me, Julian, while more assertive and a bit more pretentious and a little bit nice nasty. She reminds me a lot of Layla Keaton from All American, and like her dad is a music executive who's on the road all the time and just leaves her to her own devices. And sis has lost her mom 2 years beforehand, and she's just rich and alone and trying to figure out life as a teenager. And I was just like, God dang it, I don't want Julian to have to go through that as well. So I'm glad they have taken the turn that they have taken with her dad. I'm looking forward to getting to know a little bit more. Like we know that he's like 7 years sober. We know that him and Nicholas have whatever their issues are surrounding their mom, which I kind of wanted to know immediately. I was just like, y'all hate each other. Like you don't even want to be in the same city as Zoya's dad. What in the heck happened? And they allude to it as we go along with saying like I guess Zoya's dad stole her from, Julian's dad or stole their mom from Julian's mom. And I'm just like, all right, are we in high school? Like, what y'all talking about? Because that ain't enough for you to be striking this freaking line in the sand and just don't you ever cross it. But I did like the addition of the Lola subplot with him, and it wasn't just like him being shady, nasty. Like he is trying to be intentional. He is doing his best to be a good dad, but he's also fearful of like fumbling and making a mistake and then that being a visual thing. So that's kind of what I took from that whole Lola storyline, even though I don't know if Lola is going to work out. I think sis might be a little over eager and in need of a career boost, and it's like, girl, we need something really solid right
Yeah.
now. I think that Julian's dad might need to go back on the market, but yeah.
Yeah. You brought up something very interesting that I was hoping to talk about, it the why Nick and Julian's dad hate each other so much. And that they revealed the Gossip Girl twist immediately. I thought that was going to be what is keeping me in the show. And honestly, what is keeping me in the show is wondering what it is that caused those two to separate so far. That to their credit, they might have revealed the biggest question in the show in the first episode, but they've given a good amount of other questions, some of which I care about the answer to. Yeah. Many of which I don't care about the answer. But
what are some of the questions you don't care about the answer
to? Like, I guess like if Monet and Luna are ever going to change and be better, because I just from the beginning I kind of ignored those two characters. I thought they were just going to be there, and then in the third episode Luna started to show up more, and then in the fourth episode they both showed up more, and I just really any questions surrounding those characters I didn't care about. I didn't really care about.
Well, let me pause there really quick, because Monet and Luna, I was trying to forget about them too, but they refused to step their behinds to the back. Okay?
Yeah.
They kept bringing themselves forward, asserting themselves in every situation, and it was always for some trash reason. Even when Luna was like, "Oh, I'm going to help Zoya get it together," I thought that she was like, "Okay, I'm going to just jump ships and I'm going to go to Zoya," and I was like, "Oh, I can get behind this." But she was trying to set her up so that she could sabotage her just so she can go back, and I was just like,
yeah.
Do y'all not have nothing to do? No homework, no boyfriends, no mamas, no daddies, no dogs, no nothing that you could be doing right now, because they are like 24/7, 365 focused on this goal of nothingness, and it just blows my mind. So while I'm not wondering if they're going to change, I feel like I'm like low-key resent watching specific parts with them, because I'm waiting to see when the shit is going to blow up for them. Like I'm waiting for them to get theirs. Yeah. And I hate that I'm watching with that intention, but I am.
The episode 3 and 4, the Luna and Zoya and Julian and Obi plot felt like the same in both of those episodes.
Yes, it did.
Because at the end of it they were together again. Everything was happy, and at the end of the fourth episode, everything was happy, but they had to introduce a reason for them to fight again. And it just feels like those two characters are there just so that Zoya and Julian can fight for a bit. And it feels like a waste of those two characters that could do something or just not be there.
Or just not be there. Because the young actress that plays Monet, I'm like, sis, if this is what you came here to do, I could do without it. I
Yeah.
would much rather see you sashay up and down the Lower East Side, looking fabulous, helping out the homeless, being an amazing friend, and being a star student or something. I don't know. Run track or do something with yourself other than this. This is terrorism, plain and simple. You are terrorizing the Lower East Side, and I've had it.
Yeah. And it seems like Monet, at least, isn't, they're not making her change. Luna, there's some hints that she might be,
Yeah.
which I don't care about. But
So
yeah.
I don't think okay. So we're gonna go forward really quickly, y'all, to touch on them in episode 5 because we see a divide. We see a divide of the core group, and I guess this is going to be divide and conquer because Monet stakes her claim with another influencer, another little popular girl over at another school, and by golly, Miss Smiley, go ahead, do your thing. And Luna is the one who finds out that Monet is the one who sabotaged what they had going on with this costume contest. And then Luna makes a choice to stay with Julian and to do what's right. So, yes, we start to see that like pivot and like, okay, we kind of get hopes. But I'm also like, girl, I don't care if you change or not. At this point, I just want you to be quiet and go along for the ride because
Yeah.
Audrey, Zoya, and Julian got this.
Yeah.
You're not needed at this point.
Yeah. And even if every other character goes to the other group, I really won't care as long as Audrey, Zoya, and Julian are together because I like that trio. I think that dynamic works really well.
Yeah.
I love Audrey. She's so funny to me, and I think that you brought up a very interesting point earlier on that she is still a child and she doesn't handle her emotions well, and so I really like that character. I want to see those three be together. Luna, get out of here, please.
Exit stage left. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, what are some other questions that you don't care to have answered?
There was one that was answered that I didn't really care to have answered. It was the big question of what was on the video. What was on this video? Zoya would sink Zoya, and the answer we got was certainly an answer.
But it just made you love Zoya more. So
Absolutely.
I was so disappointed. It was so anticlimactic. And I was holding out. I was like, oh, so she's really not this good girl that we thought that she would be. It's this juiciness on this tape. And come to find out she was the victim of bullying. Like, I cannot, y'all.
Yeah. It just made me like her more. And I guess that was the writer's goal, but they could have gone about it at a different angle. Because it made me think something was going to happen when in reality it was just nothing.
Right. And then I get that they were using it as a mechanism to also bring around Julian's arc, but I kind of feel like something else could have taken that place because while it made me like Zoya more, it didn't necessarily make me hate Julian more. It just kind of was what it was.
It's brought up this overarching question of that, and I know we have talked about it individually on our own time, but why Gossip Girl is targeting Zoya when Zoya is the one person who has not done anything to them. That was more of the question, and it just made me hate the teachers even more for bringing this up. I don't like that.
Let's go ahead and get to the nitty gritty because
Yeah.
these teachers.
Yeah.
I have made no qualms about the fact that I do not like these insecure folk, these ridiculous folk, these I'm going to try to relive my high school years at the expense of all of these other young, well to do, wealthy high school minds. Kate Keller, while she seems like she could be one of the most likable characters on television right now, she is a terrorist and she's the worst kind because she thinks that she's a good guy.
Yeah. They're all kind of predators. not really been kind of predators. And it is, yeah, I was reading somewhere that the creators wanted to like show the morality behind the Gossip Girl account, and that is an interesting question, but it's not one that I really wanted to see.
Right. And that didn't start like that part didn't pop up until episode 5. Like it's not until episode 5 that you actually get the dialogue around Gossip Girl and the morality. We see Kate start to make a pivot and instill a little bit of rules and a little bit more structure and what they have going on with Gossip Girl after considering shutting it down. But the way that they went into it and set it up to begin with, and we're rolling with it, like, and to see these teachers get such huge dopamine hits and just feel so proud of themselves in the moments where they made these kids feel so low, I'm just like, where are the therapists at?
Yeah.
We are rich. Where are the therapists?
And I feel bad, but the only teacher that I think like that I can even recognize is Katie. She's the only one, and I agree she could be so likable. The other two are so forgettable, and I don't blame the actors. I don't think that they're written particularly to be that memorable. I do want to ask. There have been some hints earlier on, and especially in this episode 5, that there might be something going on between Katie and Mr. Lotz. What are your thoughts about
I
that?
definitely think that that's something that's coming. I definitely think that that's something that's coming. However, Gossip Girl is going to get in between it. And we start to see that seed happen in this episode because he's putting his email address into her phone and then she starts to get Gossip Girl messages and she's trying to like conceal that. So I'm like, oh yeah, this is going to be a problem. And the fact that like Gossip Girl is partly, well, in the past few episodes was partly ruining his life as well. Like Gossip Girl is the reason why they had to go up with the, apartment board because they were living in the grandmother's house co-op and all of that. Like if he finds out this, he's going to learn that she's not who she pretends to be. And I'm saying pretends to be because I have yet to really register who Kate Keller actually is.
Yeah.
Like initially we get that she's this really nice literature teacher who, is really, focused on writing, loves writing, is passionate about writing and shaping young minds. But the fact that she gets so enthralled with Gossip Girl so easily, to me, tells me that there's a seed there that's also a part of who you are. And you're not just a squeaky clean thing.
Yeah. I would even be willing if we don't get I'm going to say this, but I wouldn't watch the series. If we don't get a second season of Gossip Girl, if we just got a Katie Keller prequel, I would be interested to see who she is, what her life was. I wouldn't watch it. I would, because I don't have time for that. But but
it could be something.
Yeah.
And maybe that's also a misstep that they've done with these teachers, is that they haven't actually given us a reason to root for them doing this.
Yeah.
Except for the idea that hopefully we'll latch on to the fact that like, let's teach these kids a lesson. And I'm like, regardless of how trash they are, how entitled they are, how privileged they're also still children it's y'all's job to shape them.
Yeah.
So no, like I don't sign off on you ruining their lives and crushing their self-esteem and completely demoralizing them amongst their peers.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
When they're full-grown adults, it just makes the whole thing a bit icky to watch. I felt after that first episode where teacher whose name I don't know sent a picture of like a half-naked Zoya and a half-naked Obi to Keller, and then they posted it online, knowing that they name drop, or they said in the episode Zoya's 14. Knowing that knowledge and knowing that these are adults, it is never going to make me want to root for these characters. Mm-hmm. I want them.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, so I think that the teachers are probably my biggest struggle of this entire series. Now, it's been cool seeing them have conflict amongst themselves surrounding Gossip Girl. That's added a little bit of sauce on top of this pie, if you will. Yeah. But for the most part, I'm going to be hard pressed to be empathetic of whatever happens to Kate as we move through the rest of the season, because I feel like everything that she gets, she's going to have earned.
Yeah.
And then the same with the other ones. I kind of feel bad for the guy though, because in episode 5 we get the reveal that he's only doing this to be next to her. And it's just
Yeah.
like, okay, so I can actually understand your involvement in some degree, because that is your motivation, and your motivation isn't just to rewrite childhood wounds of like, oh, people didn't like me.
Yeah, I was surprised by that reveal. That was the first thing in the series that has actually like surprised me. And they will have to do something major for me to care about what happens to Katie. I don't think it's impossible for them to do, but I don't think they're going to do it.
All right. So, leaving the land of these trash teachers and their insecurities, let's talk about another couple on the show. Or actually, let's talk about the trio and then how we got to the couple, because right now we're seeing Obi and Zoya not necessarily be on the same page, but it seems like they clicked immediately. Like as soon as they met, it made sense. Like everything aligned. It feel like the stars aligned and everything. And even though he was with Julian at the time, it was like, okay, this is inevitably going to happen. So now when I'm like watching and seeing what we're seeing now, I'm just like, this is very soon, very fast for us to have been getting such electric chemistry before. What is actually going on? What are your
Yeah.
thoughts around not only Obi and Zoya, but then Julian, Obi, and Zoya, and how we got to where we are?
The Zoya and Obi, I wanted them together the second I saw them. And you're absolutely right. The second, and if I'm saying something that you're not saying, let me know. But
Okay.
but the second that they got together, I wanted them apart from each other. They've been together a month from the 5th episode, and every episode I've been like, this is the one that they're gonna break up in. To be clicking in a way. Zoe has talked about kind of thinking Obi is a little fake, and I think that's rather interesting because he comes across as this like liberal, progressive. I want to make the world a better place, but not actually do the work to make it a better place. And I think that's a very interesting character. And Zoya is very much the opposite. She wants to make the world a better place, and she has the passion to make it a better place. And I don't know where I'm going with this, but I know that I find it most fascinating when Zoya and Obi are chatting now. I know, or not Zoya and Obi, Julian and Obi are chatting now. I no longer have the I want these two to stay together. It's I want these two to separate. And I also don't want these two to get back together. I would just be okay if all three of them were friends.
Mm-hmm. And see, I wanted to live in Obi and Zoya land for a little bit longer. So when they
Yeah.
started to have issues, I was just like, okay. And honestly, when they started to have issues, it was all Zoya at first, because she was
Yeah.
so invested in crushing Julian and trying to fight back, and she got wrapped up in something that was completely outside of herself and not in her normal character or anything like that. So it made sense for Obi to have the issues that he's having. When we arrived in episode 5, though, I was like, dang, I thought y'all were good. She actually smoothed things over with you and her, as well as you and Julian. Like, what is actually happening? And I felt like even the things that they were communicating were wrong. I was just, only thing I was irritated about with that is that they weren't communicating it to each other. Because they
Yeah.
both seem like people that if they would just say that to each other, they would be like, oh, we're back to where we needed to be. Now I know how to operate, or that you feel this way, or where to adjust, or what you need. And that to me is the biggest struggle that I'm seeing right now with Obi and Zoya.
I agree. It's there are moments where it feels like some of the conflict in the show could be solved with like a well placed post-it note on a fridge, like just writing out these are the things that I'm upset about, and then
Right.
read it like, oh, okay, now I know how to change. And I know that's just a thing in TV, but not loving it to see it.
Right. And these characters kind of feel like that. Like these characters feel like they would be able to just send a random text of this is how I'm feeling, or just checking in, or this is my random thought. And I'm just like, why aren't y'all doing it? That is a big struggle for me. But I do still like and am invested in them, especially given like how they got together so quickly and the emotional toll that it kind of took on Julian. I would feel pissed if, not that Julian and Obi ended for no reason, but they definitely expedited the ending because of Zoya's arrival. And if they aren't going to make it at least a little bit longer, I'm like, that would have all been for naught.
Yeah. I would really be upset if it was all for nothing.
Yeah.
So it's so sweet, and especially now that we know her past, she's so sweet. I don't want anything bad to happen to her. Obi, you be good.
Now, do you think that there's a possibility in, or there's any world where Julian and Obi got back together? Because as I was seeing them process their closure, I saw Julian come to a understanding and an awakening of like, she knows that she hasn't been who Obi needs, but she's aware of who Obi needs, and she wasn't necessarily opposed to being that. She was just caught up in the BS. So I'm just like,
Yeah.
okay, girl, like, what are you really saying?
I've had a theory that them like hooking up with each other would be how they end the first season, and that would
Mm,
come for the second season. I don't know if they're confirmed,
right.
but that's I've felt like they'll get back together at some point.
Gotcha. Okay. All right,
Yeah.
Zoya girl, guard your heart now. Even though Zoya also surprised me in episode 5 when she became so smitten with that reporter so
Yeah.
quickly. Like, let's unpack that, because I was just like, girl, do you feel that much so like like an outsider that you're literally going to throw all of your relationships to the wayside for this random guy that you met on the bus because he's just saying all the right things?
Yeah. Especially with them like catching him in a lie. He said he didn't have an Instagram, and then they immediately showed him that he does have an Instagram. I was surprised by her naivety in that episode. Maybe it was just rose-colored glasses, but maybe it was more.
Right. And it's like, okay, even that, like, you need to be having some conversations if you really feel this uncomfortable in this new world that you're in, because all of your friends are in it, not just Obi. And he's probably the most grounded one out of this group that you're now surrounding yourself with. So for him to be bearing the brunt of, I just think that we're different people, and her whole relationship could be sacrificed because of that, it just kind of rings a little bit false to me. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I'm sorry, I just dropped my phone, so I
Oh,
was a
no
little
worries.
flustered. Uh, no, there's definitely some level of this is for show with Obi, and I don't think he's willing to admit that to himself. We
Mm.
did a lot of that. He confessed to Julian that a lot of the problems in the relationship were on him, and I feel like we're seeing these manifest again in this relationship where he wants things, but he's not willing to work for it. Him and Aki have had some very interesting conversations just about their own issues, and just the two of them chatting about their relationships, the issues that they're having. I think both of them, Aki is somebody who is struggling for this reason, and he is struggling for a completely different reason. Aki is
Mhm.
willing to put in work, and Obi is not. And that's kind of the vibe I've been getting from Obi as a character.
Gotcha. I wanted to believe Obi. Like, when we first were introduced to him, I was like, "Oh, great, we got a moral compass in this whole group." But everyone is kind of like unclean, or not necessarily unclean, because that's a horrible way to put it. But everyone has their ish, right? And I can totally see that. I can see that they're moving in the way of him not necessarily working hard enough for the things that he says that he wants. And even when I go back now and think about the charity fundraiser that he wanted to date with Zoya, and hiding in plain sight, and she's like, "Yeah, this is cool and all, but like, they're spending all this money on the food. Like, why can't we just get the supplies and go and give it to the kids?" And then he decides to do that. It's like it takes her to prompt him to actually understand that. So he does have all of these very idealistic views, but how much of it is his actual tangible actions backing up his beliefs.
Yeah, that disconnect from the high upper class to the lower class that Zoya has come from is never more apparent than in that episode, because his solution was spend more money to make money, spend more money to like lose a lot of your money and then also make a little bit of money for charity, when in reality it was so much easier to just buy supplies for the students. That like disconnect is so fascinating, because we do have a little bit of class discussion going on in this show, and I'm being a much more complimentary of it than I expected to be when we started that. But there is that discussion about what it's like to live in high class and to suddenly be introduced to people who are not in the same economic status, and for people to come from lower status and to be exposed to people who are so privileged. And so yeah.
And I think it was easy for Obi to kind of like masquerade as the grounded, in touch charity one, because he was the best of the worst
Yeah.
in his social circle. And now that Zoya is there, she is the honesty, the truth, the realness of the worst. So then you actually get to see where he falls on the spectrum, and it's not so clear and finite of like, yeah, he's fighting for all good, but he also has his blind spots as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm also sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say he's definitely got skeletons in the closet that I want to see exposed. So
Yeah. Yeah, so like let's talk about some of the questions that you do want to see answered.
all right. So I do want to see the Lola and Julian's dad. I don't know why he's the only dad or parent I can't come up with the name of. I want to see that answered. How do they meet? What has been going on here? We've got a little bit of sense of what is going on there and a little bit of how they met, but I want to know what those 7 years are like. I don't know if we'll get that question, but I'm very interested.
Wait, they've been together for 7 years?
I think so. I thought it was 7 years. Maybe it was 7 months.
I know he's been sober for 7 years.
Oh, maybe I'm mixing those two things up. That's probably it.
I'm like, oh, that changes things. I just feel like she's not there for the right reasons. I don't know why. Well, I do know why. I'm probably just being biased, but she's giving me she's not there for the right reason. She's giving me like I think that she do like him, but she also understands how this could be helpful for her career.
Oh, absolutely.
And I just don't get solid enough. Okay. What other questions do you have?
Oh,
Hey Oliver, thank you for checking in with us. We're talking Gossip Girl.
One question, any question that revolves around the Max and Rafa relationship, I've got a lot of questions about that.
That's his name. I keep calling him creepy teacher dude now.
That's their name, honestly. Especially after this 5th episode, he is very, very creepy teacher.
They literally took him on a completely different trajectory. I actually liked him to start.
Yeah. Around that 2nd episode, they took it somewhere that I wasn't expecting in the 4th episode, and now this episode, and
yeah. I'm just like, wow. Like I was so impressive, like, because Max is charming and he's persistent and he seemed like, yeah, I'm just gonna wear him down. Okay, cool. And the fact that he was putting up boundaries, he was very like, this is my personal life, this is my professional life, you're a student. I love seeing that because you see so often in these teen dramas, like, okay, yeah, one of the teachers is gonna be sleeping with the kid. Okay, cool. Yeah. So when he was putting up all these roadblocks, but then he also still cared, like, and he saw the fallout of like, what happened. Even when Max was using him to get back at one of his dads, he still showed this empathetic side to him. So I was like, okay, so he's not completely heartless, cool. But then for it to turn into what it is, I'm just like, great, we gotta throw him away too. Like, the trash can is full. I have too many characters that we're tossing.
We can't have anything nice. And yeah.
So you want to see more about their story? Is that what you were saying?
not necessarily more, but I want some clarification on some of the things. Rafa's lied to him about a lot, and I want to know how far this lie has gotten, how many people
Mm.
impacted. Like, he's clearly been grooming Max before we even realized he was grooming Max, and I want to know, how long has he been getting away with this? Is he going to be? Oh, and just the simple fact that, oh, I don't know if I cut out.
No worries.
Oh,
Just
okay.
kind of came back.
Okay, just the fact that he knows who Gossip Girl is, and Gossip Girl, if they ever post about him, he can reveal who they are. That I do find quite.
Mm.
There's this big moral thing about this big immoral thing that he is doing. Are they going to be willing to put themselves on the line to expose it, or are they going to cower in this?
I did not think about that. That part is interesting. And yeah, he is holding that. He's holding
Yeah,
that big joker in his hand,
yeah.
ready to play it. Okay, I can see that. One of the questions that I'm looking forward to getting answered, which is like, I don't know what this says about me, but I want to know more about their mom. Like, I want to know what happened to Zoya and Julian's
Oh
mom.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I want to know like how did well we know she died giving birth to Zoya, but like I want to know the nitty gritty of like how did you go from Julian's dad to Nick? Like what all happened there? Why did you never bring your girls together? Oh well, she died giving birth to Zoya, but like what was the conversation that allowed for these two men to think that it was okay to keep these sisters apart for all of these years, for 14 years? Like there had to have been some
That
kind of
is,
communication between the mom and these two guys so that they thought it would be okay to do this thing. So that's like the biggest question I wanted to have answered. Yeah.
yeah, no, that is a really great one that I didn't even think of.
It has nothing to
The
do with Gossip Girl. It has nothing to do
Yeah,
with nothing on the East Side. But I'm just sitting here like, maybe we're gonna hear about the mom, and
yeah,
like a little spoiler alert: the mom who we see only in photographs on Julian's vanity is actually Karina Evans, who is the director of the pilot. She directed a bunch of Drake videos, and I absolutely love her work. She's freaking awesome. I do think that regardless of like some of the things that are happening with story, Gossip Girl has been beautifully shot. This is all the
oh,
episodes
absolutely.
look like movies. Okay, they look great. But shout out to that. That's a little Easter egg that they're actually using a photo of the pilot director as the mom.
I didn't know that at all. And I also want to say a small spoiler for episode 5, just an appearance that I was not expecting. The in the At the location that they were going to, which was, I think, a bar. They're usually going to bars. That would make sense. They're at their costume party. There's somebody singing, and I was like, "Is that the voice of Billy
Oh
Porter?"
yes,
Was the voice of
yes.
Billy Porter, and I was so happy to see him.
Oh my god, I forgot to mention that in my breakdown. But when I tell you I squealed, I was like, "Oh, y'all
I
got Billy."
It was
Got
the
it.
highlight episode for me. And I was taking notes because I always take notes on the episodes. I just wrote Billy Porter in all caps.
Yes, giving
Always,
presence, performance, realness. I was like, yo, this is so dope. And actually, when I saw him, I was like, oh my God, MJ sings now too. What if we get more people throughout the rest of the season?
yeah,
Yeah, that was a little cameo. That was beautiful.
very nice. It was so nice to see.
Yes.
On the topic of cameos, and I'm sorry that we've gone a little long.
No
Um,
worries.
I wanted to ask for your opinion. I've heard that there was a big cameo this episode from somebody from the original series.
Maybe I didn't recognize them. Did y'all see? Who was who Oliver, who is the cameo? Because you're on it. You're in the comment section all the time. Um I know they make reference to, so the two girls that they're going up against for the costume, they do the reference to Blair and Serena.
Yeah,
Oh,
the
Yuki! I
oh,
didn't really put. I like. I heard the name and I was like, okay, I remember that, but I didn't visually.
yeah.
I didn't
It
visually do. So that
the
wasn't to me. If it's going to be a big cameo, then it's going to be Nate, Blair, Chuck, somebody like that. Like
yeah.
I didn't register Yuki in the moment. Even though they said her name, I was just like, okay. The same thing with
Okay.
episode 4. I struggled with that little boy's parents. What's
Yes.
the
My,
Sparks
I
boy?
had to look I had to look him up because I knew he was somebody important, and it was Milo, the son of Michelle Trachtenberg's character.
Yeah, but even it's been so long. I'm just like, I'm still. I was on Twitter and they were like, well, that's so and so, and I was just like, who the hell is
No,
that? Wait, okay, so who is her character? Wait,
Michelle
I gotta.
Trachtenberg.
Maybe I have to see her in character.
Yeah, I don't know her character name.
I'm looking it up right now because this is throwing me. What did she do?
From what I was reading, it was something along the lines of making Chuck think that he was the father to a child, but he wasn't.
Oh, well, I knew that. Yeah, I think I kind of dismissed her character.
Okay.
And I tend to do that with series. If I'm not like, if I don't care about you, it's almost like you don't exist, and that's horrible. But I got to do better.
I'm definitely trying
Um,
some of these
which
characters.
tracks of like how? Okay, so all of those beats of him being like popping up out of nowhere and being so mischievous and like well connected. Okay, but even her character, I didn't. I don't know. I didn't take her character that seriously. Well, who was the? Okay, y'all. So Yuki was the cameo from this episode, right?
Yeah,
Even though I didn't register her either, I was just like, wait, I'm trying to. Now I kind of want to go back and rewatch the original Gossip Girl because it's been so long. I have not. That's one series that I have not gone back and rewatched, and I typically do rewatch everything.
yeah.
All right, I'm gonna jump in the comments real quick and look at what y'all are saying. J Smooth, hey, welcome to the chat. I wonder how their sisterhood is going to develop in future seasons because Julian will graduate way before Zoya. Yeah. Um. Hey, Big Kev, you're catching the tail end of this Gossip Girl chat. Yeah, it will be interesting to see where. Okay, so let's end off there. Where do you see the series going? What do you hope to see in the rest of this season? And like, how many seasons do you think that they can get out of this reboot?
I think they can get around 4 seasons out of this.
Okay.
Um, with the most recent episode touching on some like rather serious subject matter, I am interested to see how far that conversation will go. Not specifically that subplot, but I am wondering if this show is going to tackle teen suicide, and that is
Mm.
that I got an inkling of in this episode that Gossip Girl could end up causing some people some mental illness, some maybe body harming. So that was something that I could see happening at the end of this season or in a future season. I would like to see, obviously, I'd like to see Audrey staying with them because she's my favorite character. I want to see her and Aki find more of a friendship. I think that the two of them have love for each other, but I don't know if it's romantic love.
Mm.
I want to see Max get away from Rafa, and that might be difficult, and it might be a few seasons that we see that popping up. But I do want to see him separate because I don't like that Max is in that situation. I want to see more with the parents. I do want to try to see if there is a Keller Nick relationship, and I'd love to see that come spiraling down. Uh, and as for Julian and Zoya, they've set up something very interesting with Zoya is fresh, she's new to this world, and Julian is just an established influencer. I would love for them to meet in the middle, and maybe even Julian to meet Zoya at her level. I think there's a wonderful conversation to be had about social media and the dangerous impacts of it, and I'd love to see them go further with that.
Yes, I agree. I would love to see all of what you just broke down for sure. Well, thank you, Jake, so much for joining me randomly on live. At the last minute, I'm like, Jake, we're going live. You're like, okay, cool. Yeah. No, but this has been a really great talk. If you guys haven't already, go to ericavane.com. Jake is breaking down every episode of Gossip Girl, as well as jumping in very soon to do character breakdowns and give you guys a little bit more tea in reference to everything about this reboot. He is the go-to for Gossip Girl here at Vane LLC, and I'm so, so grateful for you. Thank you so much for taking time to chat with me today.
Of course, thank you.
Yes, and you will be seeing more of him, so look out for that. I am going to sign off here, and y'all will get my predictions video for next week's episode, and maybe I'll do a predictions for the rest of the series, because I'm not going to reveal it here. If you're new, be sure to subscribe. If you're watching the replay, we have a few videos linked in the description box of this video, so that if you're wondering where to start or what to watch next, we got you. It's your girl, Erica Vane, and I will see you in the next amazing video. Bye.